My name is Emily. I am from Jamf. I'm the Customer Success Manager for DfE South Australia. And today I am here to show you about a new feature that is coming currently in beta to Jamf School, and that is blueprints. So we'll get started. So I do just want to start this call with a bit of a note that the content that is contained in this presentation is still currently in beta, so it may look slightly different once it makes it to production. So what are blueprints? Now, a blueprint is a composition of configurations and assets deployable on scoped Apple devices with declarative device management as its underlying technology. So what you might have been familiar with when we're sending down configurations to our devices at the moment is configuration profiles, or profiles as they're called in Jamf School, and they allow us to apply settings and configurations to our devices. Blueprints brings an added level of flexibility to that configuration component. At this stage, it's not a replacement for the profiles. However, there are some components that will exist in both profiles and in blueprints, and we'll look at an example of that a bit later. So blueprints brings the flexibility of smart groups for policy assignments, as you would already be used to using your device groups, and combines it with advanced capabilities of the declarative device management. You can choose to use our easy predefined blueprint templates for common tasks, or a more customized setup with our blueprint builder to meet your specific needs. As I've mentioned, blueprints are currently in beta, and they will be rolled out in a phased approach. They have actually started in our US cluster from the beginning of April to the end of July. Unfortunately, we're probably looking at the end of July for our region. So we did touch on in that blueprints is built off declarative device management. And declarative device management is a modern framework that's been introduced by Apple with macOS 13 or later and iPadOS 16.1 or later. It's been implemented to improve the way that organisations manage Apple devices. It uses a declarative model to apply and maintain configurations, settings and policies on devices more efficiently than traditional management approaches. So in a nutshell, DDM, or declarative device management, makes devices smarter and reduces network chatter between a device and the MDM server. With DDM, devices autonomously update the MDM server with their current state. Devices can evaluate their own states and apply or disable settings based on this analysis. DDM is not a replacement for MDM. It's a framework within the MDM spec, and it offers a new way to manage Apple devices. So with the current MDM spec that we're all quite used to, the updating of device configurations, applications or settings requires many backwards and forwards conversations between MDM, Apple's push notification service, and the client. For example, you might want to apply a new passcode policy to a set of devices in the current state of MDM. This would require the MDM server to ask Apple to send a push to the device, asking the device to check in. Apple then asks the device to check in with its MDM server. The device then reaches out to the MDM server saying, "I've been asked to check in." The MDM server might say, "Please, can you tell me your state?" Things like OS version, passcode enabled, apps installed, etc. The device then replies with the information that's been requested. Based on this, the server might push an additional configuration for the device. The device then applies this configuration. The server then asks the device to update its state again or to confirm that it has applied that new configuration. The device then replies with the updated state. So there we're looking at about 10 steps just to get one configuration applied in our current MDM state. With DDM, when an MDM server sends a declaration to a device, that's all we need to do. It then becomes the responsibility of the device to apply that configuration or setting or whatever we've sent down to it. As soon as the device applies that setting, it will then use what is called the DDM status channel to report that back to the MDM server. So we've now gone from 10 steps down to 2, maybe 3. So you can see that that would reduce the load on not only on the client and improve performance that side, but also the network traffic coming to and from our MDM servers and the load on our servers. So we're really excited about what declarative device management brings to Jamf and MDM, and we're just at the beginning of that journey. Before we get into what blueprints look like in Jamf School, there is a prerequisite, and this is mainly aimed at Tom because you're probably the one who'll be responsible for configuring this, but it will change the login experience. Now, you've probably already seen, I think we discussed it briefly last time, that there has been a change in the login experience with your Jamf School environment. Now, that is in preparation for being able to access our new features like blueprints via what we're calling Jamf Account SSO. Now, the reason for Jamf Account SSO is that blueprints is actually not part of Jamf School. It is part of a platform that we can plug into all of our MDM products. So we also have Jamf Pro and we also have Jamf Now. Blueprints can be plugged in as a module to these products without us having to develop them 3 times. So it makes us more efficient and agile to be able to keep up with Apple's new features, and it gives a more streamlined user experience for all of our portals. To be able to ensure that you are applying your configurations to the correct Jamf School environment, we need to be able to authenticate who you are. So this is where we've implemented Jamf Account SSO. So what that means for you or for the organisation of DFE South Australia, you would federate Jamf account, which is account.jamf.com, with your Okta or Entra tenant. And once that has been done, you can turn that on to be your login for Jamf School. So what that would look like when you go to your Jamf School login window, you would enter your school email address as you have done previously, and it will see that your domain has been federated. It will then pass you through to your Okta and ask you for your Okta password or your Entra password, whichever is decided to be used, and it will then log you in. So the requirement is that the email address within Jamf School in your existing administrators section matches the email address that you're using with the Okta, and then all of those permissions will flow through. So you don't have to make any changes with inside Jamf School. It should just map your user to your Jamf School administrator user. Future logins, you will actually have a much more streamlined process because you'll be able to use any of your Okta, like if you've got FastPass or anything like that, you can use that to log in and you won't be having to enter your password all the time. This will then open up the ability to see blueprints within Jamf School. At the moment, you won't be able to see it because you haven't got that configured. So once we do have it in region, that'll be a conversation that Tom and I will have about how we get that configured so that everyone can use these new features, because it will be pretty much all of our new features will be dependent on this Jamf account. So let's take a look at what Blueprints is in Jamf School. So Blueprints within Jamf School includes 3 templates at this point in time, and on launch we're expecting that to be those 3, and there'll be new ones coming in the future. So we've got math settings, so for controlling our calculator settings, Apple Intelligence settings that Apple released with the iPad calculator that finally came out with iOS 17. We also have software updates, which I'm sure many of you will be clapping your hands for, and passcode policies. It supports both macOS and iPadOS /iOS, and you can build up your own blueprints with multiple, I guess we would be familiar with calling them payloads, but they would be declarations. So multiple declarations. So we could have a passcode policy and a math settings policy in the same blueprint, for example. So let's have a look at software updates via blueprints. So the first step that we need to do is we're preparing our blueprint. So by preparing your blueprint, you can still make changes to it. Once you have prepared it and saved your changes, you can simply click the deploy button. So there's two steps that is a little bit different to what we're used to now with a profile, where we select our scope and once we've saved it, it goes down. We can select all of our settings within the blueprint and have it just sitting there without, and it can be fully scoped and ready to go, but without pressing that deploy button, it isn't actually applied to the devices yet. So there is two steps that we need to complete to get those settings down to the device. If we can use, we can use our smart and static groups as we would normally, so our device groups within Jamf School to do our scoping. And for some blueprints, not particularly software updates, but some blueprints, you would only need to ever change the scope. You can set and forget what's within the blueprint itself, and you would just be changing the scope of who's receiving that declaration. So if a device that becomes part of or falls out of the scope of a group targeted by a blueprint, the declaration is added or removed accordingly. So in the case of the software update scope, we could create a group for all iOS updates, all iOS devices not on the latest OS, for example. So 18.4.1 is the latest at the moment. So we might create a group for all devices that are not on 18.4 or lower. Once the device is updated to the latest version, the device will fall out of scope and the declaration will be removed. Now, with software updates, you might think that you can set one down that says, just keep me on the latest version. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So with software updates, you would still be creating or modifying your declaration each time there is a new iOS update. There is some plans to have that changed when Apple release that and make it available for us so that you can actually say, after 30 days, update to this OS, update to the latest OS. But at this point in time, you will be setting what version you want to go to. Once the declaration is applied, the admin does not need to do anything. As I said, everything else is up to the device. So there are some things that we need to consider when we are setting a software update declaration. You can see in the screenshot there that we are setting the date and the time of day that we want the update to be applied at the latest time. So as soon as we send down a declaration to a device for a software update, it will pop up a notification on the using the notification window to say that there is a software update declaration available, and a software update available, and that they can apply it. You will be applying, the date that you will be applying is the latest date that can apply. So when we're doing that, things to consider are the time of day that we're setting for that software update to be enforced. And we also need to consider the same things that we have to consider now when we're sending a software update, that if the device is locked or turned off, the update won't apply until the device is unlocked or turned back on again. So if we are sending down updates to devices that belong to students that all go home on the weekend, and we think, oh, we'll send the update on the weekend because then it won't be on our network and they won't be in class, but then they don't use their iPad over the weekend. When they come back to school on Monday and they all turn their devices on or unlock them, that update will be forcefully applied because the date will have passed. So if the date's passed, it will forcefully apply that update. That's about, I think that's all I needed to cover there. So the maths settings, so as I mentioned, this is for controlling the calculator app and the Apple Intelligence functionality that came with that when Apple released it. So unlike software updates that you tend to deliver just once with each version, the math setting declaration, which prevents the use of particular math settings within the calculator app, may need to be added and removed from the device multiple times a week, depending on a lesson and the needs of that lesson. So creating a device group where devices can be added or removed as and when the math settings declaration is needed means that once the blueprint is configured, when the required setting and targeting of the desired group matches, you just need to change the group membership is all you need to worry about. So the blueprint can actually be essentially set and forget. So admins don't need to be changing the settings within the blueprint. They can just change the scope of that blueprint to apply the declaration or remove the declaration when needed. And we're going to jump into Jamf School after I've been through all of this, and we'll have a look at what those settings are and how we can do this. So the final one that we have is passcode policies. Now, this was actually snuck into the beta while I was making this slideshow, so I don't have too many details about this one at the moment, but it is exactly as we would be configuring our profile with our passcode payload. You have those same settings, but we're delivering them via a declaration. Now, while we touch on that, one of the benefits of a declaration over a profile is it can't be manipulated. It can only be manipulated by MDM. So even if your user happens to be an admin on their computer, they can't go and delete those profiles or make changes to the settings. So one of the things not currently available in Jamf School, but is available in Jamf Pro, is a service management declaration, which allows us to control what would previously be done by launch daemons. So things where we had administrators on their computer, they could still go and modify a launch daemon and stop a security tool from running, because if we deliver that via a declaration, it can't be modified even by an admin user. So we're increasing that security, putting us more in control of those settings and making sure those settings apply and stay applied. As you would know, we do currently have a policy, a payload for passcodes in our profiles. You can still leave that profile there, that it won't interfere with the declaration. It will use the most restrictive settings. So the same way that is if we applied two profiles with the same payloads with different settings, the device will take the most restrictive settings. Once again, with a passcode policy, we could be setting and forgetting it. With a passcode blueprint or declaration, we can set and forget. As an admin, we shouldn't need to be making changes to it all the time unless something changes within the organisation. We've changed our policy that we want to apply, but once we've set those settings, we can control who it goes to through our smart device groups. So once we have applied a declaration to the device, you can actually see them on the device. So when it has been sent down to the device, as we would see under our VPN and device management settings, where we would see our profiles and restrictions at the moment, there is a new section down the bottom called configurations. And this is where you can view the declaration settings on the device. You can, once you click on configurations, you can then see the details of the declaration that's been applied. So in this example, you can see what software update setting we're trying to get that device to. what the declaration is for it to be on it, what target OS it's meant to be on. The final thing that we're going to have a look at is our status. So as I said, it is a two-step process. So we can build out our declarations and not deploy them, and then have them deployed later. So as you can see in the example screenshot there, we've got a never deployed, a deployed, and saved but not deployed. So that saved but not deployed might be that there's been a modification to that declaration, but the changes haven't been redeployed yet. You can see your last updated time and your scope. So you can scope a declaration to multiple device groups, and we'll have a look at what that looks like. There's a couple of caveats within Jamf School and our locations that we just need to be aware of. I have raised some feature requests to hopefully get a bit more control around those. But at this stage in the beta, we'll have a look at the caveats in that in a moment. So deleting a blueprint will remove the declaration from the device or the devices that are in scope. Modifying the scope will remove or add the declaration to the devices that are now in scope of that declaration. And declarations from all locations will appear for all schools at this point in time. And that's what I'm hopefully working on to get some granularity around. And also all locations can edit a blueprint. So if one school was to create a blueprint, another school can go in and modify that blueprint. So that's also something that I have a feature request. I'm working with the Jamf School team on what we can do around that. So let's jump over and take a look. So as you can see here, I have this new menu item on the left called Blueprints, and there are, of course, permissions for accessing for blueprints that you can set. So here we can see that I've already created some blueprints. If this was the first time that I had come here, it would start on this screen here, which is our quick start screen. And these are our templates. So we're looking here at our templates for software updates. So we're going to jump into opening a software update. And I'm going to say latest iOS 18.4.1 upgrade. Oops. And we can add a description. And then we click next. And this is where we can pick our scope. Now, if I was in a sublocation, I would only see my smart groups and static groups. So I have created a group where iOS version less than 18.4. And here we have where we can set our time and our target OS version. So I'm going to click in here and we get a calendar. And I'm going to say that I want it updated by tomorrow. And I'm going to select 4 p.m, for example. So this is the enforcement date. So we need to be, this is where we need to be mindful about, this will be the final time that if the device hasn't done the update, it's going to apply the update at this time if the device is on and unlocked. Now this just is a text field. So I'm going to type in here 18.14.1 because that's the version that I want to go to. And I'm going to click save. So here you will see we have our declaration set out, and this is the software update configuration that we've just added. And you can see that I have this button up the top, which is deploy. If I was to pop out of here and go back to blueprints, you can see I have the one that we just created and it's saying never deployed. So at this point in time, it's not making any changes to our devices, even though we've done our scoping, which is a little bit different to what we're used to at the moment. Because once we've done our scope and we hit save, that does apply a profile to our devices. So we just need to be mindful that we now have to hit deploy. I'm going to pop back in there and I'm going to hit deploy. Now that's sending that down to the devices that are in scope, and you can see that there's 2 devices that are in scope of this group. Obviously, this number will update as they fall out of the group once they have done the update. So we also get our status of when it was last updated and when it was last deployed. So because we are looking at the moment where things are seen by all locations, this information could be quite useful for you as within an organisation to be making sure that we're making changes to the right one and when were they last updated and deployed if you're doing any troubleshooting. So I do just want to show you another one. So that's now updated to deployed. I'm going to create another one with passcode for now. So I'm going to say passcode compliance. And I'm going to say created a group, passcode compliance. And as you would have seen this before, this is all the same as what you would have within a passcode policy within a profile at the moment. So we can set what we require here. And I will say, I'm just going to set that to, yeah, that'll do for now. Don't want to lock myself out of my devices. And then we can click save. But what we have down here, and this is the reason I wanted to show you that, is we can actually create, we can add multiple declarations to our blueprint. So I could actually drag across the math settings. Now, it wouldn't make sense to have a software update one that was within another one with passcode policy and math settings, and it may not even make sense to have passcode policy and math settings together because math setting is something that you may want to change on a regular basis as discussed, but just wanted to demonstrate that you can have multiple declarations within one blueprint. And as we build this out and have more options available to you, you will be able to build out a blueprint for your maybe your student devices. That would be the end goal. So you would be able to have a blueprint, and this is what all of our student devices receive for their configuration settings. Obviously, as Apple continue to release more things through DDM, and we're expecting more with WWDC, we will be able to build these out further, and you will be able to build up a full configuration in a blueprint. Something that I did miss back on the declarative device management slide that I just thought of is there's a tool called DDM Explorer that has been built by Jamf and is available on our concepts page and from the QR code that was on that slide. It is built for Jamf Pro, but it can be used for anyone that wants to dig a bit deeper into what's available with declarative. And what that Explorer allows you to do is build out declarations that we've not currently built out in the UI. They can't currently be used in Jamf School, but it's a good way to see what is available and what might be coming later down the track. And I don't know for sure, but hopefully we will be building out a way for us to import those declarations into Jamf School as well. So the plan is to have those able to be into Jamf Pro, but hopefully that will also become available in Jamf School because Blueprints is a module with outside of the platform, so we should be able to see a bit more feature parity there. So I'm going to click into the maths settings that I just added, and I can tick on the options that I want here. So I can disable these options, and I'm not sure if anyone's seen these, but you can disable the scientific mode and the notes, where they can write in a maths problem and get the answers and those types of things in here. And I'm just going to click save. Oh, one thing, we just pop back in there and I'll show you. Up here, it does tell you the versions of the operating system that these declarations are supported on. So that's quite a useful bit of information up there to make sure that you're applying them to the right devices. And then once again, we hit deploy. So I don't currently have any devices in that group that is scoped at the moment, but I will just show you the three dots up here is where we can go in and edit the details. So this would be the detail of the blueprint at the top level, and or delete the blueprint. And as I said before, when we're deleting a blueprint, that will remove all declarations that are applied within that blueprint from the devices. So we'll just jump over and show you what it looks like in a school location. So that was at the top level. So as you can see, these were all, well, this one was actually created at this training level. These were created at the top level. I can open this and I can edit it, even though I am the school level. So we just need to be aware of that. I can also delete it. So, but what we can also do is if I go into edit, not there, sorry. Here in the scope, I can scope my groups to that declaration. So you could potentially create a declaration at the top level and then have the schools go in and scope at their level if needed. So that was the main things that I wanted to show around a bit of intricacies because of our level, our school top level and school level location differences with Jamf School. So we just need to be mindful that every school will see everyone's declarations, and potentially you might need to, if we haven't made the changes by the time it makes it to production in Australia, that we might need to use some naming conventions to identify school level declarations that we don't want other schools to modify, basically. Would be my suggestion at this stage.